the Battle of Nicopolis, 1396. This was the day Europe discovered a cold truth. Courage was no longer enough. Honor no longer saved anyone. What happens when knights ride into battle as if it were a tournament, while their enemy fights like a machine? Along the Danube River, at the gates of the Balkans, Europe's noblest armies gathered. French and Burgundian knights arrived to teach the Ottomans a lesson. They came for glory. They came expecting destiny to favor them. Across the hills stood Bayezid I, the Thunderbolt. He did not come to compete. He came to dismantle. The knights charged first. They broke the forward line and believed fate was on their side. But the trap at Nicopolis was never at the front. It waited behind success. If you love epic battles and war history, stay with me. Because the most shocking part isn't that they lost, but they lost exactly the way they believed they would win.
Disciplined forces held.
By the late 14th century, the Balkans were already breaking. The Ottomans had crossed the Dardanelles decades earlier, not as raiders, as rulers. They secured Thrace. They built permanent strongholds. And from there, they pushed steadily into the Balkans. The region was divided, exhausted by wars. Many Balkan princes survived only by paying tribute. And at the center of this pressure stood Nicopolis. Perched above the Danube, Nicopolis controlled the river routes and the main corridors of movement. If the fortress held, Hungary possessed a southern shield. If it fell, the road north lay open. For Western Europe, that possibility was unacceptable. The fear was simple and powerful. And if the Ottomans were not stopped here, they would not stop at all. So a crusade was called. Nobles answered not only from faith, but from pride. Heavy cavalry had always solved problems like this. At least, that was the belief. Hungary formed the backbone under King Sigismund. French and Burgundian knights arrived in force, seeing the campaign as a stage for honor. Border allies like Wallachia understood Ottoman warfare far better, but their warnings carried little weight. On paper, it was an impressive army. Men, armor, money. But as many medieval chronicles quietly suggest, from the very beginning, the army lacked the one thing modern war demands: a single, unified command. On the surface, the Crusader army looked unstoppable. Heavy knights in full plate armor, war horses bred for impact. When men are trained from childhood to fight face to face, they believed in one simple truth. Once a charge began, nothing could stop it. That belief was their greatest strength, and their first fracture. Among the Crusaders, honor came before coordination. Individual glory mattered more than timing. French knights pushed to attack first, eager to claim the moment. Hungarian commanders urged caution, formation, and patience. The argument was never truly resolved. Across the field, Bayezid I prepared under a different logic. To the Ottomans, battle was not a single strike, it was a process. Draw the enemy forward, hold the center, strike the flanks, close the exits. Their army reflected that thinking. Janissaries formed the disciplined core. Infantry trained to absorb shock and hold ground. Sipahi cavalry waited behind them, mobile and controlled, built for maneuver rather than glory. Serbian vassal forces added heavy cavalry and deep knowledge of the terrain, and the land itself became part of the plan. The Ottomans positioned light troops at the front to invite the charge. Behind them stood firm lines designed to slow momentum. Further back waited the mobile force meant to collapse the sides. To the knights, it looked like weakness. In reality, it was depth. And just as the Crusaders began to believe they were winning, another army was already moving, not in front of them, but on both sides. The French knights attacked first. They spurred their horses forward, eager to claim the opening blow. They did not wait for the infantry. They did not wait for coordination. They rode alone, and in doing so, and separated themselves from their own army. That was not the first strike of the battle. It was the first wrong decision. Ahead of them, the Ottoman light troops gave ground, not in panic, but in order. To the knights, it looked like a collapse. They pressed harder, driving the enemy uphill. The pursuit stretched their formation. Groups drifted apart. Momentum replaced control. As the slope steepened, exhaustion set in. Armor dragged. Breath shortened. Horses lost power. By the time the knights reached the Ottoman main line, the charge was no longer a hammer. It was a body thrown against a wall. You can defeat a man, but you cannot defeat a disciplined formation by force alone. The Janissaries held. They absorbed the impact. They kept their spacing. They broke the rhythm of the assault. Here, so the knights lost their greatest weapon, momentum. Pinned between the slope behind them and the infantry in front, they stalled. And then the battlefield changed shape. From both flanks, Sipahi cavalry moved in. Not in a single dramatic strike, but in controlled waves. Isolated groups were cut off. What had been a battle became a separation. Separation became encirclement. At Nicopolis, defeat did not arrive in a single moment. Choice disappeared. One option at a time. Hungarian forces attempted to intervene, but distance and timing betrayed them. The battlefield had already fractured. The retreat began, and the retreat collapsed into flight. According to both Western chronicles and Ottoman accounts, the withdrawal turned into chaos. Men were cut down as they fled. Others were captured, surrounded, exhausted, and alone. When the Crusader army did not break because it lacked courage. It broke because it ran out of options. When the fighting stopped, the meaning of Nicopolis began to settle. Thousands of Crusaders were dead or captured. Those of noble rank were often spared, not out of mercy, but calculation. They were worth more alive than dead. For the rest, there was no such value. Across Europe, the shock was profound. This was not supposed to happen. A chivalric army had done everything it believed was right. It was charged with courage. It had sought honor, and it had still been destroyed. The defeat was hard to accept because it offered no comforting excuse. The knights had not lost because they were cowards. They had lost because the world they understood no longer existed. In the Balkans, the consequences were immediate. Nicopolis was no longer a secure barrier. The northern frontier weakened. Ottoman authority grew. Victory gave the Ottomans leverage to demand tribute, to move armies, to shape the political balance of the region. The battlefield fell silent. But the impact of Nicopolis was only beginning. It did not merely end a campaign. It changed how Europe understood war itself. Nicopolis is often remembered as one of the last great crusades led by medieval knights. Not the last battle, but the last time Europe truly believed that noble cavalry alone could decide history. After Nicopolis, that belief began to fracture. The Ottomans proved they were no longer a frontier threat. They were an organized empire, with structure, depth, and command. They did not rely on heroes. They relied on systems, and systems won. Nicopolis left behind lessons that echo far beyond the 14th century. Honor does not replace command. A charge does not replace coordination. An army built around one decisive blow will lose to an army built in layers. And the most dangerous moment in any war is the moment you believe you are already winning. These lessons do not belong only to generals. When you rush forward for personal glory, you cut yourself off from your team. When you underestimate the structure of your opponent, you step into a trap without knowing it. Nicopolis did not kill chivalry in a single day, but it showed Europe something far more unsettling. Chivalry was already obsolete. If you want to continue this journey, the long collapse of the knightly age, leave a comment with the battle you believe ended an era, and watch what follows. From Poitiers to Agincourt to Varna. History does not repeat itself, but it remembers those who refuse to adapt.